NATO says a gunman wearing an Afghan army uniform shot and killed 2 U.S. troops Thursday, just hours after the Taliban called on Afghans to kill foreign soldiers, while violent street protests continue as well. And Afghans are furious over the apparent burning of copies of the Quran at a NATO airbase. Nick Payton-Walsh joins us now from the Afghan capital, Kabul. Nick, this just seems to keep getting worse.
Absolutely. One thing I should point out about the death of these 2 American soldiers, a US official is telling us that actually they believe happened in conjunction with the protest against the Quran burning that was happening outside that military base at that particular time. 2 protesters shot dead, 7 injured in that instance as well. Yet another protest turned violent, also to the east where I'm standing here in Kabul, in Kapisa, in which we understand a Norwegian soldier was likely injured as well as some protesters. Deep concerns here that this violence now on its 3rd day does not show any signs of abating, and there's really very little else that the US can do in terms of finding more senior people to apologise. President Barack Obama has issued this statement, released in fact by President Hamid Karzai's palace themselves, in which Barack Obama says the error was inadvertent, and I assure you we will take the appropriate steps to avoid any recurrence, to include holding accountable those responsible. So an effort by NATO and the Americans to try and be transparent about this mistake, how it happened, but that really isn't washing here in a country where there's a decade almost of NATO presence that hasn't delivered what it promised, and many Afghans are poor, deeply offended by this burning of the Quran and taking their anger out on the streets, Jonathan.
So is there anything more U.S. authorities can do beyond the apologies you've described and just hunkering down and waiting for this to pass?
US diplomats have for the last 48 hours been on what would effectively be lockdown the north-south and here in Kabul, concerned for their own safety. There's not much more the Americans can really do. They've apologised, frankly. They've tried to explain how this may have happened. Religious texts being used to pass, we're told by a military official, messages between extremists in a detention facility rounded up, put, it seems, in a bag for disposal, but then sent to the incinerator incorrectly, where it was discovered by local Afghan workers. There is an investigation ongoing, and they're supposed to be hearing in the coming minutes exactly what the first findings of that Afghan investigation have been. But really, this tends to take on a life of its own. Misinformation very prevalent in Afghanistan, much anger, as I say, out there already, and of course concerns that tomorrow Friday prayers and perhaps sermons from mullahs may further aggravate this situation. Deep concerns at yet more violence, Jonathan.